folks. We'll just wait a few moments to give time for people to trickle in. Welcome, welcome. Thanks everyone for joining. Thanks, Jeffrey. Great. So yeah, we'll give it just another few seconds for folks to join. I'm super excited to be here and talk to you guys about bees today. So while we're waiting, I'll just go ahead and introduce myself. I'm Ashley Ellis with Whole Kids. I'm joined by Vanessa Cruz, also with Whole Kids, Tammy Enright, and Emily Ellingberg from the Bee Cause. So you will hear from all of us today. While we're waiting, if you guys want to, feel free to drop your name and where you're located in the chat. I love that some folks are already starting to do that. That's awesome. And great. And probably in a few moments, we'll get started. We got 2 Florida folks. Austin, nice. Love it, love to see it. Cool. All right, it's 4:02. I think let's go ahead and get started. And this webinar is recorded too, so don't worry if you're coming in a little bit late. You are welcome to go back and watch it. But we'll go ahead and kick it off. So welcome to the Bee Grant Application Information Webinar. Again, my name is Ashley Ellis. I'm the Edible Education Program Manager with Whole Kids. And again, we are joined today by Vanessa Cruz, also with Whole Kids, our School Food Program Specialist, as well as Tammy Enright and Emily Ellingberg from the Bee Cause. So you'll hear a little bit from each of us today throughout the webinar, and we'll also do a Q&A at the end. So with that, just a few housekeeping items to get us started. You are welcome to use the chat for any chatty related things, including putting your name and where you're from. And if you have questions, which we very much encourage you to ask throughout the presentation or at the end, we encourage you to use the Q&A function of WebEx, which you can find by selecting the 3 dots in the menu bar. And if you click on that, then there should be a thing that says Q&A. So please use the Q&A function for any questions you have. We'll collect those and answer them at the end. Any handouts we mention or PDFs, as well as the slides themselves, will be sent in a follow-up email after the webinar. We'll also have recordings of this webinar, as well as our next webinar posted on, or hosted on each of our websites, the Whole Kids website and the Bee Cause website, so that you can reference those as you go through the application. So the second webinar, a little bit more about that, we'll be hosting a webinar that's specifically a Q&A webinar. That one will be Wednesday, September 25th, 9 a.m. Pacific, 11 Central, and noon Eastern. With that one, we like to cover some questions that we get every year, some frequently asked questions, but we also leave a lot of time for all of your questions that you guys will have come up. So definitely we encourage you to attend that one as well and come with your questions. Awesome. So today, the agenda, we will talk about each of our organizations, kind of give a little bit of an overview, tell you guys who we are. And we will then discuss the eligibility for the Bee Grant. We'll talk about getting started on your application or getting started on your bee program. We will talk about the different type of grants, the different options for grants, the costs. We'll talk about the timeline. We'll also spend a fair amount of time on the application process itself, as well as the application portal, and give you some tips and tricks for working in there. Of course, we'll give you lots of resources to go home with. And then, of course, again, at the end, we will have time for questions in this webinar as well. Great. So just a little bit about Whole Kids. So our mission is to improve children's nutrition by supporting schools and organizations and inspiring families. We support schools and nonprofits and families through our various grant programs, which include our Garden Grant program, which I'll talk a little bit about, our Bee Grant program, which is this one, our School Food Support and Salad Bar program, as well as the Get Schools Cooking Grant. So a range of options there. I do want to touch on the Garden Grant specifically because there's really cool kind of complement between the Garden Grant and the Bee Grant. So our Garden Grant is a $3,000 monetary grant that supports edible educational school gardens and nonprofit gardens. So that means you're eligible to apply if you're a school or a nonprofit in the US or Canada. And you must work with children in grades K through 12. Our application period for the Garden Grant is between mid-February and March, so it's a different cycle than the Bee Grant. And then we award those grants in early August. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions about that. Lots of info on our website about the Garden Grant as well. And you are eligible for both the, getting a Garden Grant does not disqualify you from getting a Bee Grant. So possibilities for both abound. So with that, I will hand it off to Emily to tell us about the Bee Cause.
Sorry, I was muted. All right. Excellent. Okay, one more slide forward. There we are. Hi, I'm Emily Ellingberg. I'm the Director of Educational Programs at the Bee Cause Project. Welcome to everyone. We're excited that you're here. We're excited to kick off another grant cycle with our amazing partners at Whole Kids. Our mission is to inspire the next generation of environmental stewards while protecting our planet's precious pollinators. And I just want to say thank you to all the educators who are here for helping us to continue this mission. And a big thank you to Whole Kids, who we've been working with for 9 years. It is such a great partnership. And as Ashley mentioned, the Bee Grant complements the Garden Grant on so many levels. So next slide. Everybody wants to know about eligibility. So who can apply? All applicants must be in the US or Canada, be a K-12 school or nonprofit organization that serves K-12, work with at least 10 or more children, and your Bee program must be used as an educational tool. And if you're still not sure, next slide. If you're not sure if you're eligible, reach out to us. We can always help you determine your eligibility at info@thebeecause.org. I'm going to say reach out to us a lot during this slideshow because really each grant program is really specific and unique. And if you're not sure, we're here to help you. You might work with a library, an after-school camp, museum, children's hospital, community gardens, or something else. And we can help determine if it's a good fit, if you're working with K-12 children, and if you're eligible based on this criteria. Next slide. So the Getting Started checklist, first of all, I want to point out the QR code. There are several throughout the slideshow so that you can scan that with your phone using the photo, your camera, and just kind of hold those in your phone for later so you can go back and check that out. Everything's also on our websites, but we just kind of wanted to put it in your hand tonight. This link goes to our website where you can find all the information you need no matter what stage you are in the process. You may already have your bees approved, or you may just be getting started with that. You may need a little more guidance on the steps that are necessary for your successful program, but we do encourage you to explore the resources that are available, including how to start a bee club, how to connect with a local beekeeper to find your bee mentor. We do require that you have a bee mentor to support your journey as well as the health of the bees, and we will talk more about that in this webinar. We can actually help you find a local beekeeping association or connect you with a beekeeper, again, if you just reach out to info. And we have documents that provide detailed how-to information on how to get your bees approved on your campus. And as I mentioned before, each organization is slightly different. So if you're not sure, we're here to help with that. Next slide. Great. So which grant to choose? We're offering 2 types of grants, the traditional Bee Grant and the renewal grant. The traditional is for new applicants only who've not received a bee grant from us in the past. And if you have applied in the past, but you've not been awarded the grant, we do encourage you to reapply this year. And then the renewal grant is for past recipients who have received their traditional bee grant in 2023 or before and have completed their most recent progress report, and have not already received 2 renewal grants. There is a cap on that for 2 renewal grants in total. And our goal with the renewal grant is to keep you in our network, to ensure your continued success, to help you fill in the gaps, to grow your bee program on a larger scale, whatever will help you and your students be successful. So next slide is just a quick poll. We just wanted to take a second and just kind of gauge the audience and see if you are here for the traditional bee grant or if you are here for the renewal grant. Traditional is coming in at the top so far. And we'll cater to both in this webinar. We'll explain both. We just like to know what brings people to this webinar tonight, to learn more about you as well. So it looks like everybody's here for the traditional grant so far. Our renewal grants are like, yeah, we know what to do. All right, I'm ready when you are, Ashley. And you can keep chiming in because we do go back and look at all this information that you share with us. So let's talk about the types of grants. For those of you who are here for the traditional bee grant, you have 2 choices based on what's best for your organization. If you're interested in the indoor observation hive, there are some specific requirements for this hive to work in your space, which we'll cover in the next slide. And if you're interested in adding a different type of honeybee hive to your campus, which might be a Langstroth or a top bar, you're going to want to apply for the monetary grant. And if you're not sure which is best, you're going to want to email us. So this is kind of the breakdown that just gives you the information about what to expect in your grant. For those of you who are here to receive the renewal grant, it's a monetary stipend to continue to grow your program. You also will receive the consultation and the experience box, just like you would with the traditional bee grant. We assume with the renewal grant that you will most likely be using your original equipment and then adding to what you already have with that. So, but again, we'll talk more about the renewal grant. All right. So let's just dig in for a minute to the 2 traditional bee grant options. So it's kind of like a choose your own adventure on this. So this is a pic of our indoor observation hive. We're one of the only organizations that provides this unique kind of hive, as well as information about how to install it and how to care for it. We have hundreds of these across the US and Canada in science labs, lobbies, atriums. The hive comes with an installation kit so that you can set up the exit for the bees on an exterior wall where they can come and go through an opening to the outside. And you can use this QR code. It'll take you to a video on the installation. I am a seer. I had to visually see how it is installed in order to understand all the parts and pieces and components. So that might be really helpful for those of you who are visual learners, as I am. The hive is on a pivoting frame that can lay flat against the wall, but you can also rotate it so that you can see both sides of the hive. It's approximately 4 feet tall and holds 8 deep frames of bees. And the bees will need an exit space on the outside that is at least 8 feet away from high traffic areas so that the bees can come and go safely and not interfere with students or visitors on your campus. We do provide signage to alert visitors where the hive is located on your school. We'll talk more about the OER Commons as we get to the resources part. It is a really unique hive, and I encourage you again to check out that video. And then the next slide is for the monetary stipend. So this is for folks who want to install an outdoor hive on your campus. And the choice of style is between you, the bee advocate, and your beekeeper or bee mentor. Historically, we have found that beekeepers have a specific way that they set up their hives or prefer to take care of hives, and they're your in the field expert. So you're going to want to rely on them if you're choosing the monetary stipend to pick out your equipment. We just want to provide you as much success as possible with your beekeeper. And so that's why we are doing the monetary piece instead of shipping you equipment for this one. You will need to meet with your beekeeper before you fill out your application so that you have a better understanding of the what you would need for your budget. So just a couple of notes on this. You should plan to have a sustainability component with a trained support staff. Your funds can be used only for direct bee programming. It's important that you provide that detailed project description and budget for this one, and funds may not be used for field trips, travel, or real estate. So the next slide is for the renewal grant. This is only for past recipients, as I mentioned. Again, providing that sustainability component, funds can be used for direct bee programming, and providing the detailed project description and budget. And again, funds may not be used for field trips, travel, or real estate. The renewal grant is like one of our favorite things because what it really means is that you're back and you are here in the fold with us, and we're able to continue to support you year after year in what you're growing. Really, the spirit of the grant is to just take you and your programming to the next level. All right, so next slide. We do want to acknowledge that bees do cost money, and you noticed on previous slide the amount that you receive as part of your funding, and we call that your startup funds. We know that your startup funds are only going to last for so long. We do recommend that you use those funds to help purchase your bees. You may need to feed them for the summer. There may be additional equipment you'll want or need. If you do choose the indoor observation hive, you may need to plan to have it installed. So that might be a fee that you'll incur. We encourage you to talk to a contractor or to work with the building maintenance team at your school or your business or organization to get this taken care of. And having said that, bees do cost money. Our next slide, we wanted to just talk a minute about fundraising. So you may have a plan initially for how you wish to fundraise and support your hive in the future. Some schools choose to sell honey or sell beeswax, soap, pollinator plants to raise money. However, we do offer the Pay It Forward program. It's a partnership with our friends at Savannah Bee Company. We have our private label honey that makes a lovely gift, I might add. And our mission is on the jar. You go to our website and you log in to register to purchase your you purchase it on consignment. So you'll fill out a form and we will reach back out to you and make sure that where it's headed is where you want it to go. All the documents for this are on our website, and it really is easy to participate in this. We typically ask that you sell your jar for $15 per jar. And we're doing a new promotion this year for grant recipients. If you participate in our Pay It Forward, we're flipping the donation and your school's keeping $10 and you're giving $5 back to the Bee Cause so that we can continue to give amazing grants and to support other programs that are like yours. And our next slide. So the timeline, we encourage you to get started as soon as possible. The application is easy to work through. It is a pretty straightforward process. It's really designed to walk you through all the items that you may not have considered before. So the application did open on September 4th, and part 1 will close on October 15th. We'll talk more about part 1 and part 2. You will be notified either way if you've been accepted or placed on hold by December 6th of 2024. And you will be required to sign your letter of acceptance before your grant materials are shipped in February of 2025. Next slide, thank you. You can either visit either website to learn more about the details. You will go through the Smart Simple platform, which Ashley and Vanessa will explain to you later in the webinar. So these are both of our website, and again, you'll find all the information that you need there. Next slide. Support materials, we have a vast array of support materials that are free to anyone who are interested in bees, native bees or honeybees, or any pollinators. If you apply or choose not to at this time, all of our educational content is free and available to teachers, homeschool groups, camp leaders, parents, etc. So pass it on to everyone and anyone that you know that is in environmental education. We have full curricula, virtual field trips, book club challenges, all kinds of fun hands-on activities for students. We highly recommend that you spend a bit of time exploring what's available to you. And then while you're waiting to find out if you've received the grant, there's so many ways that you can start to prepare your students to welcome some, as a kid once told me, VIPs, very important pollinators. So all this information is there for you to get started. And then we also have our OER, which stands for Open Educational Resources. It's available to all educators for free, anyone for free. You create your own login, and then you have the Because world at your fingertips. We've organized it so that you can follow a scope and sequence, and there's more than one school year's worth of information in our OER group. You can pick and choose what you need out of this. Okay. So back to what we were talking about a minute ago, the part 1 and part 2. There are 2 parts, and we do that to help you prepare for well within the timeline of the grant cycle. There is some legwork on your part that part 1 will help you prepare for, and then you'll be more prepared for part 2. In part 1, the questions are more like, do you have a bee mentor? Do you have a bee advocate? And then part 2 will take you through those details that I mentioned, like the budget, all of the placement of your hive, those types of things. This is also where you will determine which type of grant you're applying for. If you are here for traditional bee grant and you're still just not sure if you want to go down the route of the traditional bee grant with the indoor hive, or if you want to do the monetary, you can also email us at info@thebecause.org, and we can set up a call or do it via email just to help you understand what you're signing up for. And then part 2, as you're going through part 1 of the application, you're really preparing yourself to answer those more detailed questions. So part 2, again, is where you're going to upload supporting documentation. You'll have to sign a letter of understanding signed by your principal or your executive director, whoever's the head of the organization and can help you determine if this grant really is the right fit for you. You'll need to explain or share the safe place that you've decided to put your bees, and that should be south or southeast facing. And you can work on that also with your bee mentor. That's another great person in your life that will help you figure that out. We also encourage you to start creating your bee team at your school or your organization so that you have the support that you need to be able to inform families and inform your staff of, adding bees to your campus. And next slide. Awesome. Thank you. So once you've submitted part 1, you'll automatically be invited to take part 2. You will need to upload photos again for the placement. Again, that should be south or southeast. I would recommend that you work with your bee mentor on that. You will be notified if you've been approved for your grant by December 6th. If you're not approved, you're placed on a hold list, which really is more like a wait list. We are working always to determine how many grants we will give. And we usually give between 100, 120, but it's a mix of both types of grant, of the traditional and the renewal. If you're put on hold, don't give up. Some organizations apply now and are, super gung-ho about the whole thing, and then they discover it's really not the right time for their organization to add bees. So it could be that you get added back to eligibility and to accept that grant. And then we also are constantly seeking other organizations that could also help provide those grants for you. So just keep an eye out even if you've been notified that you were on the hold list. All right, next slide. So getting started, I think this is where our Whole Kids team is going to pick up and explain how you can get started with the application.
Thanks, Emily, for the handoff. Now that you guys have a great overview of your grant options, Whole Kids is going to walk you through the specifics about how to actually get started online. So this is what our homepage looks like. So if you're a returning applicant, this will look very familiar to you, and all you have to do is put in your login information. If you can't remember your password, you can do the forgot password option. If you know you have an account in Smart Simple, but you can't seem to remember either your email or your password, feel free to email us at grants@wholekidsfoundation.org, and we can help support resetting your account. If you are new to the system, you're going to click that Register Here button, which will take you to this next page. This next page is showing a registration eligibility portal that basically is going to classify you as a specific applicant. So you're going to answer, will this program be implemented in the US or Canada? Will this be at a school or nonprofit? And if you're a school, are you a public or private school? Once you fill out that questionnaire, it's going to direct you to the correct applicant information portal. And so if you're a US public school, you're going to see this format. For a US public school, we require that you register using your NCES number. If that doesn't sound familiar to you, the NCES number is a unique identifying number for all public schools registered in the US. And so you're going to click that Search NCES database. And it's going to show this option for searching. And so this is implemented within the system. And so we encourage you to use less information, because if your school is registered, for example, we have Zilker Elementary here. Had the person looking for Zilker Elementary written out Zilker Elementary, their registration number wouldn't have popped up. So we always say less is more. And so if you have a unique name, just write one part of that name. If you're not getting results that way, you can also just put in your city and state, and it'll show you all the schools within your city and state, and you can select it that way. If you continue to run into problems, feel free to email us. Like Emily mentioned, she's going to say that a lot, to email. We also very much encourage you to email us. Me and Ashley will be there answering all emails in the inbox, as well as 2 very dedicated interns who are very knowledgeable about all the systems. And so once you search and click on that search result, it might auto-populate a few items in the form, and then you're going to fill out the rest of the form as needed. Now, if you are a organization and you are in Canada, you're going to use your CRA number. So we only accept applications from registered charities. So that CRA number is going to be associated with your registered charity, and it should have an RR00 number associated with it. If you're having trouble finding your number, you can use the CRA database to look for your own number, or feel free to email us. And then similar for the US, we only accept applications from nonprofit organizations. So we'll need your EIN number that's linked with the IRS database that confirms you as a 501c3 nonprofit. And then here for the Canadian schools also have a CRA number, and you can use that search CRA database function to search for that number. Something specific for Canadian schools that's different than US public schools is the CRA number is actually associated with your school board or school district. And so if you're having trouble finding for your specific school, search using your school district or board's name, address, city, location. And again, if you run into any trouble, please email us at grants@wholekidsfoundation.org. You'll know that you've been successful with your registration when you get to the end, you submit, and you get this registration complete option. Then once you get this, you should be getting an automatic email from Smart Simple letting you into the system with a specific email and temporary password. If you do not get that email, you might have put in your email wrong, And so the system didn't have your email to send it to. So please email us. Sometimes if you're also coming from a school, the system will appear as spam. So make sure you add Smart Simple as one of your registered contacts so that you're not missing any of our communications. So if you're a returning applicant, you're going to go ahead and log in, and then this will be your portal. Say you're going to apply for a different school or a different organization, you can actually register that organization or school within your portal. So you can do that using the Register New Organization. And that blue bar in the middle is going to say what organization or school you're currently logged in as. And if you want to switch between the different profiles, you can click that little building icon that's next to the bell. Once you're registered and in the system and ready to apply for the correct school or organization, you can select the Apply Now button for either the renewal or the traditional. In Smart Simple, it's currently listed as the Honeybee, but that's what we refer to as the traditional. And don't get too worried about selecting the wrong option. The system will automatically stop you if you're not eligible for one or the other. For example, if you've never been awarded, if you try to open up the renewal application, it'll give you an alert that says, hey, you've never been awarded. Why don't you think about applying for the Honeybee? And then you'll be able to open the Honey. If you do think you're eligible and you're getting these alerts and you're confused, go ahead and just email us and we'll figure out what's going on. So once you open your application, this first tab is the first tab of the application, which is your fiscal sponsor and grantee. We wanted to sparse this out a little bit just because we do get quite a few questions about it. So a fiscal sponsor is not required. It's absolutely optional. With schools, we find that sometimes school districts don't like for checks to be written out to specific schools. So sometimes they want it to be written out to the school district. So you would have to register your school district as the fiscal sponsor, or maybe it's your PTO, PTA group. Essentially, you have to have a fiscal sponsor if you're going to accept funds from anyone that's not the applying entity. And then whoever you register as your fiscal sponsor, it should match this grantee information. If you do not have a fiscal sponsor, this information should match the applying entity. So if Zilker Elementary is applying and is willing to accept the funds and award on its behalf, Zilker Elementary will fill out this application section. If Zilker Elementary wants their PTO to accept the funds, they'll register their PTO as the fiscal sponsor, and then they'll fill out this grantee section with the information from their fiscal sponsor. And then one section, as Emily mentioned, is that there is a budget portion of the application. And what you'll do is you'll just click this like plus sign on the application. And when it opens up, it'll show a table and you'll write a short description and the amount. And then at the very end, when you submit that table, it'll add it all up and you'll have your budget complete. So for overview, if you have any questions related to the program, to the actual execution of the grant, any technical questions about bees, please email BCAUSE. If you have questions and technical difficulties within the application, so anything having to do with Smart Simple, please email us at Whole Kids. And that's how we kind of split up the information and will best serve your needs. If you're confused about who to email, don't worry. Once we get your question, we will absolutely direct you to the right folks, but we're always happy to help and so excited to receive your applications. So it looks like we've gone to the end of all of our information here. It looks like we have about 30 minutes left to do some Q&A options. So I have been seeing some questions about who do we think is a good bee mentor or who can be a bee mentor? And this is a perfect example of a perfect question for the BCAUSE, so I'll hand it over to you guys.
Absolutely. Yes. And it's so funny because that is, I think, is like the first question in our Q&A webinar, but we're happy to talk about it now. So the be mentor and be advocate are kind of confusing terms until I feel like we highlight them and then you get it. So the be advocate is the person who is going to take on the responsibility of the bees at the school or organization level. So if I was, a kindergarten teacher and I was working for the elementary school down the street, and I'm the one who wants to bring the bees, and I'm going to find a bee mentor, and I'm going to, tell parents about it, then you would be the bee advocate. So you're the person who's really passionate about it in your school or your organization. Your bee mentor is a person who has worked with bees in the past. They may be a registered beekeeper or a person that at least has the experience of being a beekeeper. And they are people that will want to help you. Beekeepers by nature are educators, is what Tammy always says. And they are just the most wonderful people. The program would not function without our bee mentors. I did pop in the Q&A function, or no, in chat, I apologize. There were some questions that were coming into the chat as well. That you can do a Google search for your local beekeeping association. But we also recommend using beeculture.com. They have a find your local beekeeper, which we can pull that out of the chat, the link that I posted, and put it in the Q&A function as well. But you can search by state, and then it dials in to help you find who in your area you can reach out to. Tammy, did I miss anything in that? Anything else you want to say? Oh, you're muted. Anything else you want to say about bee advocate or bee mentor?
Okay, sorry. Yes, unmuted. No, I think that's a great overview. I think the takeaway is that there are going to be a lot of people who want to help with your program. And there are a lot of opportunities for people within the school and in your community to participate and to support. So just the easiest way to remember what a bee mentor is that truly is your beekeeper. That's the person who has the skills to manage the bees. And then everyone else is really collaborating around the educational components of the program.
And while we're on the subject of advocate and mentor, can both of those people be employees of the organization or school?
Yes, absolutely. It's not a requirement of that, but honestly, it may be even easier if they are staff members, but certainly not a requirement, and they can be staff members.
And we see a lot of schools where parents will bring the idea to the school and will offer to be the bee mentor because they're taking care of bees, in their own backyard, and their kids are wanting to share with their friends at school and whatnot. So yeah, we're very open. It's really just find someone you trust and someone who has the appropriate skills. And, sometimes it's also nice to find a backup because things happen with bees. They have free will, and sometimes they need you, when your person's not there. So it's always good to sort of, the more the merrier.
There are some questions about like an expected budget if you, when they're filling out the application. Do we have an example of an expected budget, or what resources should they use?
We do not have a sample budget. We've been asked that before. I think that the best way to go about that is starting with, first of all, which grant are you going to choose? If you're choosing the indoor hive, your monetary value is less because you're getting a piece of equipment. So really with that, for the indoor hive, it's more about like, will you be needing bee suits? Will you be needing a smoker? Will you, all of those parts and pieces. And really that kind of comes down to where you choose to shop. And the other part of that is your bee mentor may be gifting some of those things to your program, or may have a line on it with someone that they know. So really, and it's so different in region to region and state to state. And then, there's also the, difference between Canadian purchases versus US purchases. So it really kind of comes down to where are you buying your supplies from. Same for the monetary grant, for the traditional bee grant, because beekeeping isn't really a one size fits all. And as I mentioned earlier, you are going to want to rely on what your bee mentor says. We need this type of bee box, we need this type of frames, we need, all of these different parts and pieces. So really, that's why I mentioned talking to them prior to putting in your budget expectation, because they should be able to give you more of a rundown of what you'll need. And like I said, there may be someone that's willing in your community to gift your first batch of bees. So then you're not having to spend the money on the bees. But that's the part in part 2 that kind of helps walk you through what you'll need.
Mhm. And if you have additional questions or you want to make sure that your budget is complete from our perspective, please email us at the info@thebeecause.org, and we would be happy to review it with you. But to Emily's point, there's not a right answer to this one. It's just, we really want to make sure that you take the time to work through it with your partners, so that you'll be successful.
Right. And someone just asked, like, how much does your first bee box that you order? And that really also depends on who your seller is and or where you're purchasing them from. So I'd love to give you it's this much every time, but it's not, it's not like shopping at the local grocery store where ketchup is always going to be $5. It's definitely different in different areas.
Yeah, I would at a high level though, you probably can count on it being between $100 and $150. A queen bee sometimes is even sold separately and not part of the box of bees. And so she could be, $15, or she might be $30 if she's marked. So to Emily's point, it does vary, but the idea behind the monetary stipend and the grant amounts that we have picked is that you will be able to do the things that you need to do to get your program started with the money that we're giving you. So if you can just think, the $500 stipend with the traditional beehive, that will be more than enough to get you started buying all of your equipment, buying your bees, even if you have to buy your queen, even if you have to start from scratch and get 1 or 2 bee suits. That's a good amount of money to get started with your programming. And then anything that you can get donated is just a bonus.
I'm seeing also a few questions about eligibility. I saw someone write in that they're a government entity, and you are also eligible, but you won't be able to register yourself in Smart Simple. So go ahead and email grants@wholekidsfoundation.org and we can get you started. I also see someone else ask if they're an environmental nonprofit with some K-12 education, if they're still eligible. You are still eligible as long as you serve at least 10 children in the K through 12 age range. So all great questions. I was wondering, someone did ask an interesting question, if there's any unexpected costs they can plan for with the traditional, if they do say the observational hive.
Yeah, I think, sometimes, one of the reasons we're doing this is that bees are struggling, and you could do everything just right, and your bees could still not make it through a season or through the year. So you might want to at least expect that you may need your bees may die midway through the year, and that would mean, in theory, that you need to pay another $100 or $150 to buy a new box of bees or colony of bees. So talk to your beekeeper about that, because a lot of beekeepers tend to have more than 1 or 2 beehives and are definitely in a community with other beekeepers. And so they would have access to, certain points in the year, there are more bees than we know what to do with. They're swarming, bees are catching, beekeepers are catching swarms and they're asking, does anyone want this colony of bees? So, replacing bees that are diseased or that are not thriving in some way, that's definitely an unexpected cost that will typically happen in the first year or two for some reason. And then maybe, once you bring your bees, you might notice that your campus isn't as pollinator friendly as you would like it to be. And so that's when some of these fundraising ideas, like what Emily mentioned with selling honey or beeswax or the Bee Cause honey, where you can raise other funds to help you do ancillary or complementary projects to take your programming to the next level. And then, of course, that's why we also have the renewal grant, where once you really get your footing and you've got your program going, that's also when you can take a breath and go, okay, now we want to add X, Y, and Z, and you can apply for another grant with us.
A couple more folks have a question regarding how schools can work to make sure students with bee allergies are kept safe. And they're also asking, do parents of bee allergy children support this program?
Yes and yes. We do have a document on our website that is the Bee Campus Safety that kind of outlines some of the things that we have discovered along the way to look for, including talking with your school nurse, having educators in the building be aware of the students who may have bee allergies. So really it's more about and if you're an organization that doesn't have a school nurse on campus, it's really about having like a point person that is the person that may have the EpiPens on hand or what have you. But in reality, despite the fact that there is a hive on your property, when we all walk outside at any given time, there could be a bee anywhere. So typically kids who are allergic to bees, it's a well-known fact in their community, in their area. And again, we have that safety document on there that gives you some other ideas about how to get everyone involved so that you can avoid, the worst of the worst. And yes, it's interesting that you say are parents of kids who have allergies supportive of it. Yes, so much so because, an allergy can certainly be dangerous, but at the same time, it doesn't keep you from being part of these amazing experiences. So we've had a lot of support from families and from kids who do have allergies. Tammy, anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I think that, one of the biggest surprises for us over the last 10 years is that we see families who have children with allergies be more supportive than not across the board. And most of the time it is because they want their kids, education is power. And so the kids who are aware of their surroundings and are connected to the natural world and understand how to keep themselves safe and to coexist in a safe and meaningful way, those kids get a lot out of our programs. And that's sort of the end goal for all of these young children. So I think that, those will probably not be the folks who are against it.
I see a new, sorry, go ahead, Vanessa.
Yeah, no, I did want to ask because I saw earlier about like what makes a good application. Emily, for you, is there an application that you go through and you say, wow, this is a really standout application? And what are some of those things that stand out to you?
I think that some of the things that are standouts are a program that Tammy and I say this all the time, that like doesn't know what they don't know. Like they go into it and they've done the research to prepare for it, and that comes across in their application. I think that there's a question about like, have you done any prep work for bringing your bees on campus? And that's always like a bit of an eye opener. Like, is this a sustainable program if there isn't already some sort of advocacy for environmental ed at the school? And that's not to say that like, you might be at the very, very beginning, and that's okay. And it still be an amazing application. But we can usually tell like the passion behind it based on the answers. And that doesn't mean like a huge long paragraph. It's just the zeroing in on how do you want to present this to your school, and then of course having the backing of your admin or your director, and then the support from your beekeeper, as to like those are the things that really catch our attention.
I see a question in the chat from Brooke who says, we are a nonprofit farm. We have multiple schools come and learn about healthy eating, soil health, regenerative farming, and growing food. Could we apply for both the indoor and outdoor hives?
This grant is for either or, but that's not to say that you could not apply for the renewal grant and use that to continue to grow your program. So if you decided that you wanted this year to do the indoor observation hive, and then after you've had a successful year, you've completed your progress report with Whole Kids, if you come back and do the renewal, then you can add that Langstroth hive, or you could add that Top Bar hive, or you could go the other way. So it really kind of comes down to like prioritizing that. And then again, you could also fundraise and be able to purchase the part that you don't receive through us. So, if you really want that indoor hive, but you want to go ahead and start with the outdoors, then you could fundraise to be able to come back and purchase the indoor hive. So it's not a no, you can't have both, but with this particular grant, you do have to choose one or the other.
And I'll just jump in there. Many of our schools will actually apply for the indoor observation hive, and then they will fundraise or engage their community or PTO or whatnot to pay for a Langstroth hive to supplement the program, because the bees do really well overwintering sometimes in different parts of the country in a Langstroth hive, especially if you have a lengthy summer break where you aren't going to have anybody in your school to take care of the bees. You may want to uninstall them over the summer and put them in a Langstroth hive, maybe with your beekeeper or whatnot. So a Langstroth hive is always sort of a natural next step. An outdoor hive is usually a very complementary next step for the indoor observation hive grant recipients. And we're happy to kind of walk you through what that would look like.
Jennifer in the chat asks, would the grant cover an observation hive that is not installed in a classroom but can travel to various school sites? I work for a university extension program, and we work in many schools in our district. We have outdoor space for hives.
Yes. So from what I understand of that, you're talking about purchasing a travel observation hive. So yes, absolutely, that would be part of your bee programming. So yes, that could definitely be part of this grant.
So that would be a traditional bee grant with the monetary stipend. And that way you would just explain in your application that you already have active hives, and that you don't need to actually use the money in your budget to buy more bees. You would like to buy unique educational equipment to help you expand your programming.
These are such good questions. That question is specifically on the Q&A. It's like, I'm like, wait, didn't we just talk about that? No, because it's for the other, but this is great. I love it.
Can you talk a little more about the observation hive you guys provide with the grant? I'm not sure if people are understanding that it's like set and custom by the bee cause.
Yeah, Emily, would we be able to kind of go back to the picture possibly in the slideshow?
Yes, that is very helpful.
It's Yeah, is that,
That's
this is
yeah.
probably one of the better pictures. Um,
No, you had it the other one. Go forward, Ashley.
So the indoor observation hive, this is a picture of it turned flat against the wall, but it does pivot so you can see both sides. You can see it's a plexiglass panel on both sides. It sort of hangs on the wall like a television. It's about the size of a TV, and then it sort of pivots from one side to another so you can see both sides of the bees. And for those of you who are familiar with the contents of a beehive, this has 8 deep frames of bees inside of the hive. And there is a 2-inch hole that goes through the wall or the window so that the bees have free will to forage, to come in and out. And then the queen stays in the hive by choice, constantly to lay eggs, and then more bees hatch. So it's sort of like you're able to see the life cycle of the bee colony year round, to see how they grow in the spring and summer when there's a lot to forage on, and then how they sort of scale back almost to a cluster or hibernation clustering situations. So over the winter when there's not much out there for them to forage on. This is a year-round installation. There are miniature versions of this that have a handle and they're on wheels, or you just kind of pull a couple of frames of bees out of either this or a traditional Langstroth hive and then take it to a school for a couple of hours, and then you come back and you put your bees in the hive. So that is not what this is. This is a permanent installation where it will most likely be in a classroom or a lab.
I saw someone asked earlier where this webinar will be posted. And so before we run out of time, which can happen very quickly, this webinar will be posted on both the Whole Kids website and the BCause website, as well as you'll receive an automatic email from WebEx with a link to its recording. So multiple places to find it. It's not going to disappear. Yeah.
And then Karen is asking where we can find information about the Pay It Forward program and fundraising.
You can go to our website. There is a, in our resource library, there's the document that also has the link to getting started with that. And it gives you all the information as to how to go about it. And there's some Q&A on that document as well. We also share that information in our newsletter. So I'm sure we can add that to the outgoing email if we have people that want to sign up for the newsletter to go ahead and start learning information about it. And you can, again, always email us at info and we can make sure you get that. I did want to mention one more thing about the finding a beekeeper real quick. If you are in an area and you're struggling to find a beekeeper, if you want to email us, we can also check in that area to see if there's another school or organization that already has one of our bee grants that we could potentially put you in touch with, or find out if their beekeeper has a friend that's a beekeeper. So there's a lot of different ways that we can go about helping you make that connection. And as I said before, every program is unique. So we just reach out to us and we'll figure it out together.
Whole Kids also has a searchable database on our website that you can look for either a bee grant or garden grant and do it based on location, and it'll pull up a list of results. So lots of options.
Awesome. Should we wrap it up? I think there was one more question in the chat, but Marcelo, I think if you email the BCause, that would be your best bet to answer that question. Awesome. Thank you all so much for coming today. I hope you learned a lot. As we've stated many times, please reach out to us with any questions that you have that you can't find answers to. And we hope to also see some of you in the next webinar when you have even more questions. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.